LiberalViewer presents.
So believe it or not, Fox News has a program devoted to watching out for media bias that they call Fox News Watch, though they must not watch Fox News because Fox News' partisan bias never seems to make it onto the program, and true to form, back on July 9th, when a huge British media scandal involving Fox News' parent company News Corp had already broken out everywhere else, the panelists on Fox News Watch wouldn't discuss the topic or even touch it with a 10-foot Durbin, as you can see the panelists discussed during a commercial break in a segment uploaded to the Fox News website that included this clip.
So, anybody want to bring up the subject we're not talking about today for the streamers?
Sure, go ahead, Cal.
No, go ahead.
Yes.
I'm not going to touch it.
With a 10-foot Durbin.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And now that 10-foot Durbin remark came from Fox News contributor Judith Miller, who knows something about media scandals, having been involved in much of the New York Times reporting on weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that turned out not to exist, for which the New York Times apologized back in 2004, so I wasn't surprised to see Miller downplay the American reach of the British News Corp scandal when Fox News Watch finally got around to covering the topic a week later in this clip.
I have to say something about the allegations with respect to American practices, and that this is spreading here, and that is the only person that, the only source of these allegations that I'm aware of is the Daily Mirror, which is a competitor to the Murdoch organization that asserts that the same practices are going on here. We don't know that, and I think the British culture is just very different. It always has been.
Now, Judith Miller's argument there that the American reach of the scandal is limited because it's just a phone hacking scandal that's part of a British tabloid culture has some problems, not least of which is that this scandal is not just a phone hacking scandal, as NPR's David Folkenflik pointed out on CNN's Reliable Sources last Sunday in this clip.
And I think it's worth pointing out that this is a scandal that encompasses both the question of hacking into voicemail messages of the targets of stories, royals, celebrities, politicians, and now we know victims of terror attacks as well are also alleged, but also that this is a police corruption scandal in which police appear to have been routinely paid for information that had been supposed to be secret and confidential.
And that other part of the scandal involving paying off British police officers could make the story a bigger American story because American law makes it a crime for businesses to bribe foreign officials, as the New Yorker's Ken Auletta pointed out on ABC's This Week last Sunday here.
Under the American Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, it is illegal for an American company, and News Corp is an American company, to pay bribes to, say, police. They paid bribes to police, we know that. So therefore, there is a possible crime committed there. Then you got the question, under the FCC rules, if you own television stations, you're supposed to have good moral character. Someone can come along and challenge the moral character of News Corp and the Murdochs to run those stations. That would put in danger his broadcast networks.
No, the legal points that Ken Auletta made there are both true, because Section 308 of Title 47 of the U.S. Code does include character as one of the qualities the government considers in granting and renewing broadcasting licenses, and such character would certainly be undermined by a violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act that makes it a crime for businesses to bribe foreign officials, which is why the second highest ranking Democrat in the Senate, Majority Whip Dick Durbin of 10-foot Durbin fame, answered a question from NBC's David Gregory on last Sunday's Meet the Press like this.
Would you like to see congressional hearings as to whether there's any, tie here to the United States in this phone hacking scandal, Senator Durbin?
Yes, I would. I can tell you that there are questions about whether the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act has been violated by Rupert Murdoch and his news empire, and what's going on in England is startling to think of the extent that they went to break the law to try to report a story. We need to follow through with the FBI investigation and also with congressional investigations.
Senator, now, of course, it's too early to draw conclusions about whether American laws were actually broken. That's what the FBI and congressional investigations are for, but I think the real question is the one that Howard Kurtz asked back over on CNN's Reliable Sources about how Rupert Murdoch's so-called news organizations seem to be less about the news and more about punishing enemies and rewarding friends, as you can see in this clip.
I talked to a couple of former reporters for the New York Post, gossipy Page 6, which had its own Brushwood scandal a few years ago. They talked about a culture of thuggishness where reporters would play favorites and where they would go after people that Murdoch or the company didn't like, and they had stories killed when they went after somebody that the company did like. Could this whole mess, this whole debacle, morph into a debate over Murdoch's media ethics or his company's media ethics here in the U.S.?
Now that's a good question, and paraphrasing it a little, I want to know what you think. Will this scandal progress beyond violations of the law and lead to an examination of how Rupert Murdoch's so-called news organizations seem to be less about the news and more about punishing enemies and rewarding friends? And regarding that law about character, what should be sufficient evidence of bad character to preclude a company or individual from getting a broadcasting license?
YouTube, you decide.